It looks like you all know this famous author, but I'm going to read something that she sent me. And she sent it to me a number of times, but this is the latest sending that I've gotten, which was at 6:56 today, which goes to show you my organizational capabilities. I'm Susan Roney-O'Brien, and I met this beautiful lady at first at a Boylston Writers Workshop, and she had brought a few pieces of a novel she was writing, and she had kind of lost faith in it for a while. But then magic happened. It's truly astonishing what talent comes through. So I'll read what she wrote, or some of what she wrote. A lifelong business writer who dabbled in creative writing on the side, Ms. Stevens found her opportunity to write fiction in earnest when she broke her pelvis in 3 places in a horseback riding fall. Just making lemonade. On crutches for 3 months and unable to commute to work, cook, clean, or shuttle kids to activities, she turned to writing. The result was Shannon's Odyssey, a middle grade novel written for her younger daughter, and you've just seen the cover of it. The following year, Stevens was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which was treated with surgery and 5 months of chemotherapy. During this recovery, she wrote Bit Player, Has-Been Actors, and Other Posers for her older daughter and all musical theater-loving teens. 2 additional Bit Players novels followed, filling the void in fiction for fans of performance shows like the Glee TV series and the High School Musical movies. Horseshoes and Hand Grenades is her first adult novel, which was prompted by the Me Too movement. And that's when I first met her. She has a bachelor's degree in English from Cornell. She also studied at University College at the University of London. She's from Gorham, Maine, and lives in Clinton, Massachusetts, or did when she wrote this blurb. Do you still live there?
Not really. Mostly
really.
for now.
Yeah. And Washington, New Hampshire. She has 2 daughters, a dog, and a cat. And she's absolutely lovely. And if you didn't already know that, you know it all now. So thank you very much and welcome.
All right, thanks, Susan. A few thank yous on my end here. First to Bob and the Worcester County Poetry Association for hosting and providing the Zoom know-how. And Susan, I have to tell a little bit more than she told, because I wouldn't be reading to you today if it weren't for Susan. Because not only did she read the manuscript, give me moral support and general encouragement, but she also indirectly connected me with my publisher. So if not for her, we wouldn't even be here. So thank you to Susan. Very glad to be your friend. Let's see. So, I also, Bob and Susan suggested that I tell you right up front that if anyone would like to buy a copy of Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, I'm going to offer it at a discount tonight of $5 off the cover price. And at the end, I'll give you details on how you can do that. And actually, too, we're also giving away some copies to the first people who registered, and Bob will name those people at the end. One housekeeping note. So you're automatically muted, I think, but you can, I think everyone knows how to unmute themselves if they want to. So feel free to ask questions at any point. Love to be interrupted for questions. You can either do that by, speaking up, turn off your microphone button, or turn your microphone on and speak up. Or there's also a chat option at the bottom of the screen. And if you click on that, there's going to be a chat box that opens on the right, and you can type a question in there. Okay, so let's talk about books. I'm going to read a little bit from Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, and if we have time, if people are interested, I can also read a passage or two from my work in progress, which I'm about 1/3 of the way through, and pretty excited about that. So, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it before I read, so it will make sense to those of you that don't know the story. It's a dual narrative told by 2 young women, Shelby and Astrid, and they're in Boston in the 1980s building their careers, making friends and romances. And Shelby is facing some recently recovered memories of inappropriate touching by her stepfather when she was a kid. And Astrid's dealing with workplace sexual harassment. So it's got some heavy themes, but many reviewers have called it entertaining and uplifting despite that, which makes me very happy because that was my goal. As far as I'm concerned, life is full of ups and downs, and I think we should reflect that in our fiction. So in addition to the negative stuff, there's a lot of friendship and love and good guys as well as bad guys. Reviewers have also said it's a very safe place to explore some of these troubling themes because the situations are not extreme. And that too was one of my goals with the book, because there are a lot of women who have experienced what some people might say is lesser abuse. And so I wanted these women to realize that if that's them, what happened to them did matter. The reason that I wrote this book, though, the catalyst, I should say, that spurred me on to do this was the Me Too movement and the coverage of the Harvey Weinstein situation. I watched the news coverage, just fascinated and horrified at the same time, because these victims were being asked the same questions over and over by reporters, naysayers, society in general. And they were asking things like, well, was it partly your fault? And why did you wait so long to speak up? And if you're speaking up now, what's your ulterior motive? And I got really kind of pissed off because nobody asks these questions, if you think about it, of victims of other crimes, right? So if somebody is a robbery or theft victim, no one asks them why they're speaking up about it or if it was their fault. So I decided we needed a novel that would try to answer those questions for people who were asking them and take people into the minds of victims. So I'm going to read just a few passages to kind of give a flavor for the story. And like I said, feel free to ask questions at any point. Although I am staring at my reading sheet, so Susan or Bob, if anyone does ask a question in the chat, maybe you can let me know. Okay. All right. So this first passage is from near the beginning of the book, and Shelby is reflecting on how she sort of recovered these memories that she had blocked out for all of her life until she's in her 20s. I was 22 when I let the memories in. They'd been fluttering around the edges of my brain like a bunch of random words straining to form a sentence. I kept finding myself awake at midnight with my face tense and contorted, my eyes scrunched, and my mouth drawn up unnaturally. Frustrated, I decided to pay attention the next time the flutters tapped gently against the inside of my skull. Once I gave them permission, they took shape. And that was that. I went on with my life. It's not like what happened changed me or anything. In this next passage, we're going to learn a bit more about Shelby through her telling of her meeting with Astrid. And our two heroines do not hit it off at first. In fact, they're sort of enemies at work. They're at a PR firm in Boston, and Shelby has just started as a newbie, fresh out of college. She's an intern, and Astrid's 2 years older, and she has just started working at this firm. So this is when they first meet. The office manager at the PR firm, Anne, has just introduced the two women in their tiny cubicle, and Shelby is doing the narration. And also, lest you cringe at the outfit I'm going to describe, remember this was the 1980s. So Astrid reached down to tug at her navy blue slingback, exhaled dramatically, scooched her chair back until it hit the other chair, my chair, and unfolded her legs from underneath the desk, bumping them against the underside of the desk in the process. She rose from her chair, turned around, and stretched up to her full height, which was somewhere around model tall in heels, but probably more like a perfect 5'7" in reality. I vowed then and there to swap out my flat pumps for heels tomorrow. I didn't even like flat pumps. Astrid's hair was straight and creamy blonde, streaked with honey and amber. It fell about 6 inches below her shoulders. Her light blue suit was ridiculously cute, even though I wouldn't be caught dead in it. It tapered from substantial shoulder pads to a thin navy belt, accentuating her tiny waist. Navy blue trim outlined the cuffs and pockets, and a power bow at the neck topped it off. "Hi," she said, analyzing me with unimpressed crystal blue eyes. She seemed ready to bolt past me, but either the lack of running room or a quick glance at Anne changed her mind. "Nice to meet you," she said, offering a slender, pearly-tipped hand. "I'll leave you two to get acquainted," Anne said with a smile and what may have been a sympathetic look in my direction, before turning and leaving me alone with this woman I immediately loathed and wanted to be at the same time. Okay. And now this is the first scene that Astrid narrates, so we'll get to hear a little bit of her voice and her personality in this one. "I can't believe it's come to this," I muttered as I prepared to wave the white flag and turn my back on all that is professional, dedicated, and chic. Making sure none of the bustling Back Bay commuters were watching, I ducked into the alley off Dartmouth Street. It had taken weeks to find the perfect out-of-the-way place. I walked in shadows to the best set of granite steps, also identified in a previous scouting mission, and wrinkled my nose. Fresh bird poop stared up at me. I would bring a handkerchief to sit on next time. No, something disposable. A handkerchief with bird shit on it was definitely not going into my gorgeous faux snakeskin briefcase. I reached into said briefcase, pulled out a few sheets of paper, and arranged them on the step. I eased myself down onto the paper and extracted from my bag my black Ferragamo shoes with 3-inch heels and the most perfect little gold buckles. Setting them down, I leaned over and eased off my outdoor running shoe. The Band-Aid on my heel was bloody, but still in place. Gingerly, I slid on the Ferragamo and turned my foot this way and that in appreciation. After repeating the operation on the other foot, I stood up, uneven on the cobblestones. Peeking out of the alley's end, I didn't see any coworkers or clients, so I pushed on into the early morning sunshine. So you're probably getting a sense that these two women are pretty different. Just one reason they clash at first. Okay, we'll get a little more serious with this passage. This is at a police station in Boston, and Astrid is meeting with a detective named Rodriguez. And what happened was the night before, the PR firm had a holiday party at a nightclub, and Astrid had an incident with her boss, whose name is Brad. So she's at the police station the next morning meeting with this detective Rodriguez. It took 10 minutes to get through the basic details of last night, possibly longer than the assault itself. You said he didn't force you into the coat room, Rodriguez said, so you went willingly. I winced at the picture his words painted. Not completely willingly, but he is a higher up at the company, and he said he wanted to discuss something work-related. And did he discuss something work-related? No. Rodriguez shook his head. Okay, so you say once you got to the coat room, he attacked you. It's not just what I say, Detective Rodriguez, I said, staring at the nameplate on his desk and willing my temper to stay even. It's what happened. He shrugged and stroked his thin mustache. You say potato, I say potato. Tell me again how he got you into a compromising position. He pulled me into the room and, wait, stop there for a second. You said this was a coat room. It's winter. No one else was around at any time. This one wasn't being used. It was empty. There's another coat check near the front of the club. Okay, continue. He pulled you into the room and then he pushed me back and pinned me against the counter. There wasn't much I could do. Detective Rodriguez studied me, his gaze taking all of me in at once. It wasn't like the leers I was used to, but it was uncomfortable just the same, as if he were sizing up my character and my physique at the same time. You're pretty tall and look athletic. You couldn't just run away? My heart beat faster at his accusatory words and the flashing back to the moment of Brad's attack. Believe me, I would have if I could, and I did eventually, as I told you, but I couldn't at first. He's more than 6 feet tall and very muscular. My face heated up as if I'd confessed my early attraction to Brad. Rodriguez was scanning his sheet of paper in the typewriter. Did you at any time tell him to stop or say no? I don't remember, but he had to know I didn't like it. I didn't kiss him back or anything. Drunk man in a dark club with a pretty woman? Being direct probably would have been a good idea. Anger welled in my scratchy throat. Are you going to keep questioning me about all the things you think I did wrong? Or are you going to help me? I hated the quiver in my voice, but then again, maybe it would elicit sympathy. Rodriguez turned toward me, leaned forward, and clasped his hands between his knees. Here's the thing, Miss Erickson. It's your word against his. You have no witnesses, no injuries except a questionable bruise on your arm. You'd been drinking. I know, he was too, but this is about your credibility. And alcohol weakens our judgment-making ability. It's a known fact. To press charges and win, you have to be able to prove the lack of consent. You don't have any proof. The room spun a little around me. So you're saying there's nothing I can do? He just gets away with this? Who knows what he would have done if I hadn't kneed him in his crotch? Rodriguez smiled with half his mouth and sat back in his chair. I think I know exactly what would have happened, so it's good you got away. Listen, I'm not unsympathetic, but my hands are tied without any evidence or witness. Spare yourself the pain and disappointment of pressing charges and move on with your life. Move on? Don't you see my life is different today than it was 2 days ago? A small sob escaped from my chest, startling me. I collected my coat and purse and stood up. I came for justice and got resistance, doubt, and suspicion. My chest ached as I held in more sobs. I turned and rushed out of the station, as sullied and out of control as I'd been in the coat room the night before. Okay. We're going to switch back to Shelby now. And you may remember from the first passage I read that she convinces herself that what happened to her as a kid didn't affect her. Over time and through the course of the book, she does change her mind about that for a bunch of reasons. So this passage, it sounds pretty somber, but it's actually healthy. It's a healthy passage in that it shows that Shelby is on the path to healing. Lying in bed that night, I had the strangest feeling I was back in Newfield as a girl. I sat on the back porch steps in the sun, which I did a lot then, rubbing my bare feet over the sand and small rocks that collected between the bottom step and the driveway. I sat there when I was little and everyone else went about their business inside. I sat there as a teenager, usually at 10 in the morning when all self-respecting teenagers were still hours from waking. I remembered a permeating melancholy with no nameable cause. As a girl, I was troubled by a general sense that time was speeding up so fast that soon I wouldn't be able to keep up. As a teenager, I attributed my malaise to a fruitless search for the meaning of life. But maybe it was neither of those things. Maybe those warm steps became a refuge after Norman started touching me. And maybe the melancholy was my soul shutting itself off from the world's pain and confusion. Okay. I think I will do one more. And this one's a bit long, but this is one of the good guys, as I mentioned. So in this passage, Astrid is talking to a guy named Dave, whom they've had a few dates, but they're not, serious or anything yet. And she's feeling pretty conflicted about what's going on at work and men in general. So this is what happens in this one. She goes to see Dave at his apartment. I thought you were meeting your girlfriends tonight, Dave said, opening the door to his small and outdated, but no doubt pricey Commonwealth Avenue apartment. I didn't feel like schlepping up to Beacon Hill and hanging in a noisy, crowded bar, I said. Then welcome to my quiet and not crowded abode, he said, standing back and sweeping his arm to usher me in. You look serious, he said, as we sat on his sofa. Wine? He asked hopefully, noticing I kept my jacket on and my purse in my lap. I shook my head. No, thanks. I have to tell you something. I'm feeling kind of weird about dating right now. I brushed his straight hair back from my face. It's not you at all. He twisted his face in confusion or maybe annoyance at my use of that tired line. I have really, really loved spending time with you the past few weeks, Dave, but I've got a confusing situation going on at work and, well, this isn't going to make any sense, but I just don't think I should date anyone right now. He took my hand gently. Okay, but can you please tell me more about the situation? I heaved a sigh. One of the higher-ups at the agency, his name's Brad, accosted me at our holiday party, and he makes lewd comments to me at work all the time. I used to think nothing bad would come of it, but after the party, I know I have to figure this situation out before I start a relationship with anyone. I don't want him to taint the start of something good between us. His eyes narrowed and his mouth drew into a firm line. What do you mean by accosted? I fiddled with the strap of my purse. He tried to force himself on me. Dave stiffened. You mean he tried to rape you? Jesus, Astrid, have you told the police? Please, I've been down this road and that won't help. I just needed to explain where my head is at. I looked up at him. Anger filled his beautiful brown eyes. I want to talk to him. You? But we barely know each other. It's not like I'm your longtime steady girlfriend or anything. I don't care if I met you yesterday. This is wrong and someone needs to hold this guy accountable. I stared at a vein beating in his neck. I appreciate that, but I still don't think that will change anything. I need to deal with this on my own. No, you don't, Astrid, and if you won't let me help, there must be someone you can tell at work. I scanned the room. I could tell Maggie, my boss, I suppose. She's the same level as him, too. Okay, start there. He tucked his hand under my chin and made me look at him. Promise you'll do it. You can't keep working in that environment. I promise. Dave scooched over on the sofa and wrapped me in a bear hug. His strong hands stroked my cashmere sweater. You may not be in the mood for this question, but I have to ask you something important. He let go and faced me. I waited. Astrid Erickson, will you be my girlfriend so we can get that straight? His tone was serious under the joking facade. Because I am not letting you go. We can take it as slow as you want. We can only see each other once a week or even just talk on the phone if that's what you want. But please don't tell me we can't see each other at all. I wavered. My plan seemed solid when I got there, but now I couldn't remember why I thought I needed to break things off. I'll make you dinner and rub your feet, he cooed, reaching for my Ferragamo. I melted. You drive a hard bargain. Okay, then. Okay, I can call you my girlfriend. He brightened like a little boy at Christmas. Okay, you can rub my feet, I said, putting my foot in his lap and grinning. Okay, I think we'll stop there on that and see if anybody has any questions.
I have one.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Sue. Good to see you.
You too.
Thanks. That was terrific. I am so amazed and impressed and just thrilled for you. Was it hard to maintain sort of an 80s mindset and an 80s voice while you're writing it now, all these decades later? Excuse me.
It wasn't too bad because, of course, as you know, we're from that era. So I myself was actually working in Boston in a PR firm in the 80s. So it generally wasn't too bad, but you do have to be careful. And Eileen knows this more than anyone because she writes real historical fiction that, yeah, you have to be careful. And even the editor did catch a few things where they're like, I don't think they said that in the 80s. They didn't use that term back then. You know,
Yeah.
so I tried to catch them, and I actually went back and researched 1980s lingo and slang to try to refresh my memory on some of the things they used to say, like she's having a cow, some of those things we used to say. So yeah, it's a little tricky, but I found some stuff, and the editors found some stuff too.
Yeah, I love the details of the clothing and
Mhm.
some of the other descriptive things that you worked in there. That was really great.
Go Power Bows. I didn't even like them in the 80s. I don't like them now.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when I read this, I kept trying. I knew you had worked in Boston. I knew you were in PR and had done. For those of you that don't know, Sue did very well in the corporate world. And are you kind of a combination? I mean, I kind of thought of you as a combination of both women. How do you see yourself relating to, how did you come up with these characters and give them these personalities? Are they parts of you? Are they parts of people you encountered? I like both women, so.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. And I've actually loved when so a lot of reviewers have said that they really favored one versus the other. And I love that when I hear that because, one is more like me. Yes, Shelby's a bit more like me. But there's definitely some of me in Astrid too. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think when I'm doing characters, I'll often pick a piece of either myself or someone I know, or even someone I've read about, and then just sort of exaggerate some of the characteristics and then sort of develop a new character from there. Any writer relies on their own emotions and experiences, right, to try to get into the head of the characters. So I guess I kind of answered that. If I'm one at all, I'm a little more Shelby than Astrid, but definitely have some things in common with both of them.
Well, you definitely struck me as Shelby, but that complexity and caution in a way of Astrid and her success too really resounded for me.
I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing that. And I have to say, it's fun. It's fun writing bitchy characters. At the beginning, she's kind of a handful, and that was fun.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I read the book and I loved it. I've been listening to a lot of different books on Audible lately, and I find that while I still love to read books, but I also like listening to them because if you have a really good narrator, it just really makes the story come alive. And now after listening to you read it, I was thinking, wow, this would make a great audio book. Are there any plans for that?
Oh, I wish. It's kind of a sore spot with me right now, honestly, because the book came out at the end of September, and my publisher, I mentioned they're small, and they just haven't got it done yet, and they keep saying they're going to. And there's great services where I could go do it myself, but I'm not really able to because the contract gives them the rights. So yeah, still working on it. I have a bunch of people that have asked for the audiobook version. So hopefully someday.
Hope so.
It's 7:33. Does anybody want to hear a bit from the new book, The Work in Progress?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yep.
I'll do a bit of that and then we can wrap up. Hang on 1 second. Bob,
Does it have a working title?
no, it's got 5 of them. Bob, I'll answer you in a minute. I'll take care of this first. So yeah, it's got like 5 working titles, so I'm not going to mention any of them.
Okay.
And I won't know until I get to the end which one works best. I'm like that. Anything I write, if it's like an article or anything that I write for work or pleasure, I never name it till the end. Okay, so let's see. So quick lead up into the one I'm working on, which I'm pretty excited about, to be honest, because I'm about a third of the way through, and I've got my beta readers looking at that first third, and it's going pretty well. It's not surprisingly, it's got some social justice themes. And what was happening was when I was doing a lot of promotion for hand grenades, people always ask, well, what's your next book going to be about? And I was like, I don't know. There's so many big issues in society that I'd love to dig into. There's mental health, there's racism, there's immigration, there's climate change. It just goes on. And I haven't decided which one to focus on. So when I decided, I'm going to focus on all of them because that's what life is like these days. So it's going to be epic. Hopefully it won't be overwhelming or boring, but it has an ensemble cast, which is really fun. It's got 6 main characters. And they're in their 30s, which I picked because that's the stage of life, or they're almost 30. And I think that's a great age because that's when, if you remember back, that's when we're all asking ourselves, am I on the right career path? Should I be married by now? Do I want to have kids or not? So it's a really important time in people's development as an adult. And also what I liked is that they're millennials. The people that are in the 28 to 30 range, they're millennials, and that generation gets maligned a lot for being lazy, entitled, everybody gets a trophy, all that stuff. And I'm watching young people right now, including my own daughters, and that's just not true. They're passionate, they're committed to change, and they're really impressive. And hopefully they're our future and they'll change the things that we couldn't. So this is like I said, 6 main characters, a lot of social justice issues come up, and I'll do 2 quick readings that get into 2 of those issues. So the first one, a little bit on the heavier side. So this is about Terrence. He's a young Black man, and in this scene, he's remembering back to parts of his childhood. And his mother. So he's around 12 or 13 when he's in these memories. And his mother is the first speaker. She has a list for him called her Staying Alive list, which is how a Black male stays alive in today's society. And she has just gone over this with her 12-year-old son, and she's speaking to him now. Some things will happen for sure in your life, Terrence. You will go to school and get an education. You will eat and sleep. Your hair will keep growing. Someone will call you hurtful names you don't deserve. And someday someone will say that you did something that you know you didn't, and that someone may be a cop. It's not right, it's not fair, but it's going to happen. Since the hurtful names part had already happened, Terrence believed her about the rest and took the advice to heart. His compliance wore down over time, however, and when puberty hormones started having their way with him, he ached to stretch out a bit. He and Tito began looking for bits of trouble. Trash talking, that timeless, thrilling rite of passage when the words are juvenile, but the balls to send those words forth are believed to be an early indicator of manhood, was their misdeed of choice. It was trash talking that got Terrence stopped by the cops the first time at 13. Now, the memory seemed quaint in its relative innocence, but at the time, Terrence thought life as he knew it was about to end. He and Tito were trading stupid "yo mama" insults with 2 white kids in the park. They faced off 30 yards apart, each boy leaning and stepping forward when his turn came to lob a comment, like a pitcher releasing a softball. As they were running out of ideas for new insults, the blonde, pimply teen took a close look at Tito, whose pretty face, swaying hips, and general bearing suggested he might not be like the others. "He a boyfriend?" the blonde one said to Terrence. Unsure if acting offended would insult Tito, Terrence hesitated. "You are," said the blonde. He laughed as if he'd caught them making out. "Gay boy lovers, fudge packers." Tito lunged at the white boy, but Terrence pulled him back before contact was made. He kept pulling Tito, one hand on his arm and one on the collar of his light jacket, until they were actually walking away, and just in time as a police cruiser rounded the corner. 5 minutes later, the cruiser turned onto the road behind them. Adrenaline, the likes of which Terrence had never imagined, turned his heart into a rapid-fire jackhammer, and his palms into mere receptacles for the sweat being mass-produced by his glands. The edges of the buildings, the curb, the trash cans in their cages sharpened in his view, yet each step forward felt dreamlike. Look straight ahead, act natural, Tito counseled. It didn't work. A minute later, the cruiser pulled alongside them and slowed as the driver lowered his window. Heard you were bothering some boys back there. No, sir, don't know what you're talking about, Terrence said, looking straight ahead and cramming his hands in his pockets to still them. They said you picked a fight. I don't like fighting on my beat, the cop said, the car crawling. No, sir, it won't happen again, Tito said. Take your hands out of your pockets, son. The car stopped, dragging the boys to a full stop with it. Slowly. His partner cast an eagle eye on Terrence as the boy followed instructions, then held his palms up and forward. The driver nodded. Now turn out your pockets, he said. Terrence complied, confirming that his fists had been the only thing in there. Turn around and let me see your back pockets. Terrence obliged, sweat dripping into his right eye. Okay, the officer said. Stay out of trouble. I'll be watching. He stared them down before saying something to his partner and driving off with a laugh and a roar of the engine. At home, Terrence told his mother what happened out of a need for comfort more than a desire to confess. Mary was pissed at both of the boys. You could have walked away from those boys. What on earth made you think it was a good idea to engage with, no, even to talk with them? It's not like they had a weapon, Mrs. Washington. I swear we didn't think anything bad would happen, Tito said, attempting to shift Mary's attention away from Terrence, an act of friendship he regretted as soon as her stormy brown eyes landed on him. Don't you see, Tito, she said slowly, they did have a weapon, stronger than any weapon you could ever buy, their white skin.
Nice.
Thanks.
That's a good, strong piece.
Thank you. And then this one, and it's very hard. It's intimidating, honestly, to put yourself in those shoes because, you know, what do I know about it? And, you know, you just hope you can have that it feels authentic to those that have experienced it. So this one, a bit lighter. This is about Jessica. Jessica Delgado had a choice to make. Which of her 3 standard breakup reasons to give Thomas, a sought-after investment banker, one of the city's most eligible bachelors, and her Caribbean holiday companion for the last 10 days? Just as they landed on American soil, Jess building a mental list of things to do before returning to work in the morning, Thomas casually dropped the C word. He wanted to make their 3-month-old relationship more serious, exclusive, the build-up to something more permanent, a commitment. Jess had said she'd think about it and busied herself organizing her carry-on items as if suddenly her pocketbook and computer bag had unorganized themselves. Now, options revolved in her head like the baggage carousel she and Thomas stood watching. She calculated having 20 minutes at most to make her decision, not ideal for someone used to digesting numbers and facts ad nauseum before recommending a course of action. Telling the truth, that her focus remained solidly on her career for 2 more years minimum, had proved frustratingly ineffective the last few times. For some reason, the successful men she attracted refused to believe she wasn't ready to settle down at her ripe age of 30. Maybe they weren't used to rejection, or maybe they thought they knew her better than she knew herself. Right. Telling the man she simply wasn't ready to commit was futile. He would reply cheerily, that's okay, they could keep things light, and he'd hang on until she was ready. But she refused to carry on with a romance in which the parties' objectives weren't aligned. That left option number 3, the most expedient strategy with the highest success rate of late. I've met someone else, she blurted as her brown and black patterned suitcase plowed through the heavy plastic fringe separating outside from inside and began its journey to its owner. Thomas turned to her, mouth open, luggage forgotten. The hurt in his eyes stung Jess, but she couldn't change course now. She jutted out her lower lip and blew a puff of air up to shift her long side-swept bangs out of her eyes. I ran into an old boyfriend just before we left on this trip, and since then, I can't stop thinking about him. I'm so sorry. I didn't plan this. You're an amazing person who will make someone else very happy very soon. She stepped away to retrieve her suitcase from the carousel. Can we talk about it? Thomas asked with a rightfully pointed stare. Jess shook her head. I'm sorry, there's nothing to talk about. Thank you for coming. This was a great vacation. She rolled her luggage outside while Thomas tactfully ducked into the men's room to avoid an awkward wait together at the taxi stand. 72 minutes later, Jess arrived home to the apartment she shared with 2 roommates. Rifling through her pile of mail, she was accosted by 2 wedding invitations from high school friends and a baby shower invitation for a colleague. It seemed all her friends were married, getting married, pregnant, getting pregnant, or recently pregnant. Why, she wondered, did people insist on spending 3% of their wedding budgets printing and mailing invitations when an Evite would suffice, freeing up cash to be funneled into other aspects of their events while doing the planet a solid? Unlike the brides-to-be, whom she'd grown up with in one of the city's more affluent suburbs, Jess prided herself on demonstrating a bit more economy. She bought her fine quality clothes at discount stores and websites. Rather than rent a posh high-rise apartment closer to downtown, she lived here in this large but less convenient apartment that allowed her to bank $1,000 a month toward a down payment on the city center condo she planned to buy in the near future. At least the reason for the hard copy shower invitation was clear, if annoying. When Jess opened that card, a flurry of pastel pink and light blue confetti in the shape of baby booties and rattles spilled all over the floor. Jess stared at them as if they'd offended her. That's it. So, like horseshoes and hand grenades, it's going to be a mixture of hopefully thought-provoking things and hopefully entertaining things and a lot of friendship, So.